After I did the movie, Paul came in and basically has been running the show kind of in my shoes. And
did you just need a rest at that point, you think?
I felt like it's time for new blood.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's good to change things up to keep it fresh. And, I'm a producer on the show, and I still look at everything.
Mm-hmm.
There it is. Proof. Irrefutable proof that no matter the circumstance, no matter the rumors spread around, Steven Hillenburg never left SpongeBob. You can hate the post-movie seasons of the show all you want. Trust me, I have my qualms with them too. But I don't want to see any of you claiming that the show got bad because of the lack of Steven's involvement ever again. Leave his name out of the discussion unless you know for a fact what you're talking about. Now, with that being said, well, get ready for me to mention Aaron Springer a lot this time around. SpongeBob SquarePants Season 6 sure is a season of television. A season of television that I actually like. And the reason I present this opinion with my chest puffed out is because Season 6 has the reputation of being considered SpongeBob's first bad season. Even while it was airing, it was the first season that made people stop and say, huh, this cartoon for children isn't the same as I remembered it being in its early days. And look, for as much as I worship this underwater cartoon animal more than any actual religious figures, it's not like I don't see why people feel this way. Out of every season during the post-movie era, Season 6 is the one that has the deadliest combination of things that people don't like about this period of the show. The pacing is so slow and drawn out that it could outlive a turtle. There's more gross out humor in this season than every other season combined. The universe takes a dump on Squidward every time he blinks. And SpongeBob's characterization is extremely inconsistent, where sometimes he acts normal, and then other times he acts like he wants to harvest Squidward's organs. And really, I get it. I do. But if you've been paying attention to this retrospective up to this point, you'll remember that I don't outright dislike any season in this show. As a matter of fact, I consider almost every single season to be good at the very least. I'll even go as far to say that I think Season 6 is better than Season 5. I probably just got put on a list for saying that. Somebody hide me, I am very scared. SpongeBob the 6th just has more going for it for me. There's more variety in the characters they use, they took bigger swings this time around, and even when the season fails, it fails in such fascinating ways. Not to mention there's a lot of gorgeous looking standout art in this season. A lot of it being done by Robert Ryan Corey. So much so that I'm gonna do my damnedest to show off as much production material throughout this video as I can. It's just a shame that the actual animation couldn't strengthen these drawings. Yeah, Season 6 is the first season in the series where Nickelodeon decided to extend the episode orders per season, going from just 20 half hours to 26 half hours, which becomes the standard for SpongeBob with every season going forward. Season 6 has a grand total of 47 episode segments, the most out of any season in the series so far. And because the crew all of a sudden got a larger workload out of nowhere, it meant that they had to initially rush the episode making process without getting extra time to work on them, which results in the writing process getting rushed and having episode scripts that only come out of the oven half-baked, which results in the animation being rushed, which results in
I play a mean belly.
My faith in humanity slowly slipping. My editors and I have actually taken the liberty to point out as many animation errors throughout the season as we can find. See how many you can spot. Yeah, I'm pinning this on you now. Let's take a gander at what is widely considered the first bad SpongeBob season, and why I think it's actually pretty good. Holy mother of God, we're starting season 6 with the square and the triangle that forms the house! Look at them go! They do be spinning though! Basically, the context is that the SpongeBob wiki used to have a page for the square and the triangle that forms the house in the House Fancy intro, and it was a meme in the SpongeBob community for a while. But then they removed it! Why? Anyways, season 6 immediately starts with the good shit. House Fancy is popping off.
I don't get it.
And I'm not even into home renovation or rich lifestyle shows. For the first time since season 3, we get to see the return of the megalomaniac, Squilliam, as we get to tour his bungalow for the first and only time. Yay! Thanks, Aaron Spinger. Bring him back. Bring him back! Please! I'm on my knees begging you, Vincent, please! I used to be absolutely infatuated with this entire stretch of the episode. It serves as cool development for Squilliam, as well as fueling Squidward's hatred for him even more. It's great. You know what else is great? The toenail scene! Yeah, I said it, fuck you! This scene was actually inspired by a very similar experience writer Danny Michaeli had with his old boss, which I don't think a lot of people know. The dialogue exchanges between SpongeBob and Squidward here are hilarious too. It may be gross, but it also has excellent comedic timing. House Fancy is an 8 out of 10, and it's going at number 20 on the list. Haha! Take that, liberals! It's just a really funny, charismatic episode that has amazing SpongeBob and Squidward chemistry, while also serving as a basis for what to expect in Season 6. Make a sequel episode! We will be seated for House Fancy 2, Fancier Than Ever.
Hey, Plankton, can our first song go like this?
Sweet Caroline.
And then turn into one of those songs that goes...
Good times never seem so...
Yes, perfect.
You know, my mom used to play the drums, so this seems like her kind of episode. I must have inherited too much of her DNA because, yeah, no, Krabby Road is really good. It's like Bucket Sweet Bucket from last season, where Plankton tricks SpongeBob, Patrick, and even Squidward into doing something for him. Except here it works a lot better because the episode's skeleton is a lot more creative, and it has more jokes in general. Methinks the public craves more of Squidward being buff. Scenes such as them trying to come up with a name for the band, a style for the band, and even songs for the band are all funny as hell. This is a really rockin' episode. Except for the fact that they don't actually play any rock songs ever? Damn, that sucks. Still, it's an 8 out of 10, and it's right above the last one at number 19 on my ranking. We even get to see the secret formula printed on screen for the first time, albeit in gibberish. Also, as I spoke of before, Season 6 is where they really started cutting corners with the animation, as this is the first episode where I noticed a lot of animation errors. Patrick's belly drum animation having an obvious loop, Plankton continuously changing size between scenes, and SpongeBob's door needs to lose a little weight. Jesus.
Oi, oi, water.
It's all really minor stuff, but it adds up. Like I previously stated, I'm going to assume that Season 6 suffered heavily from this due to the larger episode orders per season, as well as everyone involved having less time to make said episodes. Again, the show still has good-looking animation most of the time, but Season 6 is where it starts to get really spotty at points. Oh well, at least it's more visually interesting than Season 5, I'll give it that. Be careful, when you pinch Wendy's pennies, they pinch back. But Mr. Krabs flanderized because one singular coin? Need I remind y'all that this red devil almost tore somebody's arm off for a penny? I don't really think this episode is too outlandish by comparison. Plus, it's clearly self-aware at how ridiculous its own premise is. Like, this is totally something that Mr. Krabs would freak out over. It's one of those concepts that's so exaggerated that it wraps back around to become unironically hilarious. Because yeah, Penny Foolish has a lot of the funny. Hell, there are more memorable facial expressions and drawings here than most of Season 5 combined. This is also one of those episodes where Squidward is just completely deadpan throughout the entire thing. He did not feel like getting out of bed today, and it makes for some golden comedic moments. Imagine being invited to your boss's dinner theater, and it's just him whining about how much of a broke-ass bitch he is. As far as Mr. Krabs episodes are concerned, this one is up there with Imitation Crabs and Clams as being one of my favorites so far. He really wants to chase that bag. 9 pennies out of 10. Number 12 on my list. Also, look at this animation error. The animation of Mr. Krabs shaking SpongeBob is way too sped up. Hey, I told you we were going to keep a tally of as many animation errors as we can find.
Well, actually, I was going to show you this flip book. Flip book. Yeah, I don't even know what that is!
Damn, it's felt like an eternity since the last time I was able to talk about a boating school / Mrs. Puff episode. Derek Iverson joins the crew of silly sponge writers starting with this episode. He's previously been a production assistant on the show since the very beginning, and even played the creepy face in the freezer from Nightlight. Fitting how we got a new writer since Nautical Novice is the 200th episode segment of the series. This one's really neat. I like seeing SpongeBob inadvertently one-upping Mrs. Puff with his knowledge of boating, and actually making her kind of jealous for once. It's a side of Mrs. Puff's character we usually don't get to see, but I totally buy it given her history. They actually remembered that SpongeBob is very book smart when it comes to boating. There's even an action-packed climax where SpongeBob proves himself to be competent. You know, until it gets completely undone in a quirky twist ending! Unfortunately, this is just kind of Season 6's trump card. Whenever they think an episode isn't funny enough, they'll add an idiotic twist ending that usually makes an episode worse more often than not. Another one of Steven Hillenburg's rules for SpongeBob was that SpongeBob himself was never allowed to permanently get his driver's license. So why even tease it in the first place? And trust me, this ending is tame compared to the terrible diarrhea we're going to have to trudge through later. Oh well. At least we got these storyboards with cussing out of it. Yes, these are real. Totally worth it. 7 out of 10, number 24 on the ranking. SpongeBob and Gladiators should go about as well together as ketchup and ice cream, but it makes for a surprisingly really entertaining time. One of Season 6's running themes, intentional or not, was giving Plankton a taste of success for a change. Like, he destroys his life's work and builds an entire gladiator stadium not to steal the Krabby Patty secret formula, but just to one-up Krabs. Just because he can. Plankton is a level 100 hater, you love to see it. There may not be any blood and guts like Mr. Krabs' mom wanted, who, by the way, never has another speaking role in the show again until Season 14, but Spongicus is an episode that feels very inspired. It's not the typical type of episode that you'd associate with the show's world or premise, but that's what makes it unique and stand out. Plus, they add a lot of their own little touches to it, such as the existence of the sea lion. I also really like this part where Plankton just outwardly lists all of the ingredients in chum, as well as how bloodthirsty all of the Bikini Bottomites are, including SpongeBob, which is weirdly out of character for him, but it's funny, so I don't care. Great stuff. 8 out of 10, number 15 on the list. Starting with Season 6, the popular memes and YouTube poops based off of the show start to greatly diminish, and since part of this retrospective is celebrating the show's relevance in meme culture, I wanted to include some YouTube poop 21st century humor edits into a few of these segments. Have fun with these!
What is that? Behold my pussy!
Wow! 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 Wow!
That pink throat doesn't stand a chance with those nostrils around his toss it around his ravenous lionfish's curtains on a shower mold on a...
Sounds like Squidward ate at Mario's last night.
Band geeks, but good? Imagine people unironically get mad at that snark even though I said I also really liked Band Geeks. What makes Suction Cup Symphony work more as a story for me is that Squidward actually works for his victory at the end. Whereas in Band Geeks, he just kinda gets it handed to him despite doing fuck all. Squidward rarely ever gets victories during this era of the show, so when he does, it feels earned. It's an interesting implication that Squidward is abysmal at actually playing instruments, but seems to be an excellent composer. And speaking of music, the actual titular symphony in the third act is a real showstopper. It's the background music you're hearing now, as a matter of fact. Drawing the Band Geeks comparison again, while Sweet Victory worked really well for what it wanted to do, I like the Suction Cup Symphony more because it's an actual original piece composed for the show, rather than an already existing song that they just borrowed. One of my core memories with this franchise was owning this episode on DVD as a young creature, and being absolutely mesmerized by Squidward's symphony. I rewinded this entire scene so many times that it's now burned into my brain. It reminds me of those old cartoon shorts that were just visuals accompanied by music. Definite 10 out of 10. Symphony number 5 in my orchestra. This is one of those episodes that isn't really discussed much when talking about the best the post-movie era has to offer, but I think it should be part of that conversation. A classical piece of music that will go down in history as one of the greatest compositions ever performed. Season 6 has Not Normal. This is regarded as one of the most iconic episodes of the entire series. How could Season 6 possibly suck now? I am of the personal belief that there's no such thing as a quote-unquote normal person on the planet. Everyone is weird in their own ways, and if you aren't, what the hell's wrong with you? Paradoxically, you're the weird one if you're completely normal. This is totally just me projecting, I'm sorry. How diabolically inventive is this premise, though? Taking away the main thing that makes people so attached to SpongeBob in the first place. The fact that he's such a weird, silly goofball. See? Not Normal even has a funny meme scene in it. That's how you know it's popular with fans. Taking away the main thing that makes SpongeBob as a character so appealing to so many people, which serves as a reminder as to why we adore him in the first place, is such a power move. Ironically enough, an episode that aims to be as normal as possible is one of the most creative and weird in the entire season. He puts an entire desk cubicle in the kitchen, turns his pineapple into a regular-ass house, and never shuts up about the weather. Normal SpongeBob has such a buttery smooth voice too. I'd listen to an entire ASMR catalog with only this voice reading me bedtime stories. Everything about normal SpongeBob is so squishy and pleasant. I just want to give him head pats. Of course Not Normal is a 10 out of 10. Number 4 on my list. Also, I would like to remind everyone that the entire reason why SpongeBob, the most exuberant guy on the planet, goes through this character-shattering change is because he wanted to make Squidward happy. I mean, look, I don't usually do shipping, but hey, I at least see it. the last man on Earth trope. Or whatever it's called, I don't actually know. You don't know how it happened, whether it be the nuclear apocalypse, or forces beyond this Earth, but everyone, everything, everywhere on the planet is gone, with the only thing left to keep you company being your own sick, twisted mind as you further plunge into the depths of insanity. Or at least I wish that's the direction this episode went. Nope! Instead, it's heavily implied that SpongeBob fucks a boat who he refers to with male pronouns. Oh yeah, and of course the now infamous twist ending where it's revealed that everyone in Bikini Bottom, including SpongeBob's closest friends, left him behind for weeks to celebrate a made-up holiday dedicated to hating the guy. I'm just not buying it. It makes for a really weak twist, and makes literally every single character look like a bunch of bastards. And unfortunately, unlike Nautical Novice, the rest of the episode isn't interesting enough to compensate. I don't need it to go to Twilight Zone, last man on Earth blind guy breaks his only pair of glasses level of depressing, but SpongeBob is a show that is no stranger to dark episodes and psychological horror. If I were to make a comparison, The Amazing World of Gumball's The Downer is a much better take on this concept. It's funnier, wittier, and even has a better twist ending. Gumball's twist works because it doesn't completely break 99% of the characters or this world. I just don't find the idea of SpongeBob getting into a gay relationship with a boat to be an interesting direction to take this concept. Sorry. 5 out of 10, number 35 on the rankings. I guess you could claim that my investment in Gone is... gone? I'm getting straight to the point with this one. Haha, more puns. The Splinter is one of the most universally hated SpongeBob episodes of all time. So much so that this episode alone has made some people give up on the entire franchise cold turkey, which is definitely more of an understandable stopping point than Good Neighbors at least. I don't even think The Splinter is that putrid of an episode, especially compared to ones such as Fungus Among Us or To Love a Patty, but I can understand why this one would send others running for the hills. The Splinter is the only outlier in Season 6 when it comes to entire premises based in gross out, whereas Season 5 had multiple. And in my opinion, that's why the gross out in Season 6 works better than in Season 5. It's used more so to emphasize the punchline of an already existing joke by showing exposed muscles and organs. It's genuinely metal as fuck. Season 6 is when artist Robert Ryan Corey started to do a metric ton more drawings for the show, even if a lot of them, unfortunately, had to be toned down. But his art is always fantastic and gives Season 6 a unique, even if somewhat ugly identity compared to other seasons. Is good. Still doesn't make the Splinter good though. Yeah, I still don't care for it, but my reasons for disliking it don't align with the common consensus. I just think it's boring. As sin. 4 out of 10 ass episode getting put at the number 39 ass spot on the list. Squidward and Patrick acting like dildos to SpongeBob aside, after SpongeBob gets said Splinter, the pacing slows down to a crawl. It's unbearable. This is new writer Sean Shermatz's first episode, might I add, who will be writing a very inconsistent amount of episodes throughout the next few seasons. After SpongeBob, he went to work for DreamWorks, even getting to direct one of their latest movies, Orion and the Dark. I pinky promise he writes better episodes later down the line. What a splinter on this season's overall quality. Hey, look at this animation error. Where did his socks go? add it to the tally. Unfortunately, we're going to have to stumble through the likes of Season 7, 8, and 9A before we get to the miracle that is the post-sequel era. But hey, at least we can have fun with episodes like this beforehand, right? I've always seen Slide Whistle Stooges as a beta post-sequel episode, mainly because of the plethora of visual gags, as well as the reliance on clever visuals in general to sell the story. And gadzooks! They even bring back the classic formula of Squidward getting in on the fun before eventually getting carried away.
Oh! Someone help! Baby assaulter!
Hey, what are you doing? Assault your own baby!
Oh my god. Okay, thanks for promoting infant abuse, SpongeBob SquarePants. Just like the soda drink hat in Season 3, I've never actually seen a slide whistle in real life before, but hey, I don't doubt they exist. Slide Whistle Stooges is a Giga Chat episode. It's such a bouncy, cartoony joy from start to finish. I don't care that it's a Squidward torture episode, or whatever the kids nowadays call it. The premise is so out there, and the gags are so fun, that my eyes are glued to the screen the whole time. 10 slide whistles out of 10, and it slides to number 6 on my ranking. We should start keeping records of how many episodes of this show end with characters getting seriously injured, because it is a staggering amount. Play me off, fellas! Oh, speaking of episodes that end with characters getting violently gored, I guess now Larry can be all like, I lived, bitch! When was the last time Larry the Lobster even had a major role in an episode? Season 3, right? Well, now he's back again in what is probably his most iconic appearance ever. I'm serious. A Life in a Day is the Livin' Like Larry episode, which has completely overshadowed any of his appearances in pre-movie. Patrick, and eventually SpongeBob, become inspired by Larry's daredevil antics and risk their lives multiple times to do extreme stunts. It really is interesting how we usually feel the most alive when we're closest to death. Speaking of dying, Goo Lagoon, which went extinct in Season 5 for some weird reason, has now been brought back to life in Season 6, which is a season that uses this location more than any other season. Kinda gives Season 6 a nostalgic summer Hawaiian vibe. I really dig it. This is also the last episode that legendary artist Chris Riccardi ever worked on. He would storyboard for the second SpongeBob movie a bit, but that's all. Rest in peace. I would have preferred some more interactions between SpongeBob, Patrick, and Larry, but still, the episode we got was death-defyingly legendary. 8 out of 10, number 22 on my list. Why did they reuse the title card background for Band Geeks, though? What? Okay, if Squirrel Jokes was the racism episode, then Sun Bleached is the super racism episode deluxe. This one is literally about skin color. So, yeah, this one aged like a rotting egg being scorched by the sun. And unlike a now controversial episode like That's No Lady, I don't even like this one. Craig Mamilton is an okay one-off character, Camp Coral appearance notwithstanding, and the soda commercial bit is radical! But outside of that, this is one of those episodes I don't want to touch with an 11-foot pole. 4 out of 10, number 38 on the ranking. Maybe wear some sunblock next time. Let's move on to Giant Squidward, please. Here's a Luke's Wacky Fact. Giant Squidward is one of the only episodes in the franchise to ever premiere on my birthday. Yeah, happy birthday, Luke! Here's your giant fetish episode. Characters growing enormous episodes are kind of something that happens en masse in cartoons. Whether it actually is a cartoonist's barely disguised fetish or a genuine attempt to create funny animated scenarios, that's for you to decide. Squidward pulls a holy shit, Bowser is fucking big, where he is then promptly antagonized by the town. Talk about big problems! Season 6 doesn't really understand the concept of pacing, though. as it takes about half of the episode for the main conflict to kick in. But I like the gags that they do squeeze out of this massive story. There's even this weird lamppost that looks exactly like Squidward. Huh. You can tell that this was around the time in the show where the writing was starting to be rushed, and you can blame Nickelodeon's rigorous schedule for that. They don't even explain why Squidward turns back to normal size at the end. He just kind of does! Not every episode suffers from writer's burnout, but when they do, it's painfully obvious. 7 giant number 7s out of 10. Number 27 on the list. I actually really like the detail of Squidward's giant footsteps being, like, lower pitched. It tickles the exact right spot of my brain. The giant octopus is a real animal that exists, by the way. Gonna let that little factoid settle in for a bit. Step right up, folks, step right up, and watch as Patrick picks a nose. Will he pick a nose, a snoot, a schnoz, a snooter, a sniffer, a beak, a bill, a snout, a muzzle, a whipper, a nostril, or anything in between? Will Patrick be able to stifle the foul stenches that surround him? Sniff around to find out. Glad my nose isn't that big, please. A running gag that Season 6 likes to pull is changing the characters in some drastic way and seeing how they react. Making SpongeBob normal, increasing Squidward's size, giving Patrick an extra appendage, etc. And this appendage turns him into a real tyrant douchebag. Just like this guy!
You are a douchebag.
No Nose Nose could have very easily turned into one of those infamous Patrick Prick episodes. But they steer clear of that due to giving Patrick a good motivation for acting the way he does, as well as getting a good tearing down from the other characters, including Fleabag! This one is surprisingly not gross considering the season that it's from. It's quite refreshing. Patrick's stories are usually at their best when they either explore his relationships with the other characters like Driven to Tears, Swamp Mates, or Pat Hart's Squid, or delve into one of his misguided but ultimately innocent insecurities like in Valentine's Day, Big Pink Loser, and this episode. The sheer absurdity of them giving Patrick a nose in the first place is a charming enough concept that it completely entertains me all the way through. This one's really good. 9 schnozzes out of 10. Number 13 on my ranking. Did you guys know that this blue background fish is apparently voiced by a Make-A-Wish kid?
Well, I guess I won't be eating those.
It's a long-standing rumor with no official sources to back it up, but there are social media posts out there from people claiming to have known the kid. I guess this is just one of those source, dude, trust me moments. Patty Caper be so fine, then boom, crappy twist ending. Actually, no, pander back to the Season 3 video real quick. This show has always been kind of bad at telling mystery stories, honestly. The best one I can think of, ironically enough, is from Season 6. SpongeBob cannot write a good mystery twist to save its life. But hey, at least the rest of the episode is amazing. When the Krabby Patty secret ingredient goes missing, Sponge Bunch and Particle go around town and grill everyone they suspect who could have stolen it. Particle even remembers to bring his Bikini Bottom brand clackers! My god, he's not screwing around anymore, he's out for blood! What makes Patty Caper such an insert synonym for great here is SpongeBob himself. Girl has nothing to go off of, yet you'd think he's the mayor of Yapsville with how much he opens his big gaping mouth accusing everyone. His stories on how the other characters could have stolen the secret ingredient are so bonkers, and they alone make the episode worth watching. Everyone gets one. Except Mystery Carbon, oh no! See, I would have let the twist at the end slide if Mr. Krabs got his own story on how he stole the secret ingredient that's so nutso that it completely outdoes SpongeBob's. But no, we get nothing! Oh well, at least the rest of the episode is incredible. It's like an actual mystery! with clues and twists and turns. Wow, it's almost like that's what a mystery needs to actually be engaging. 9 out of 10, number 8 on my list. Take a gander at this animation error, by the way. They misspelled gallery. Ha! Imagine ever misspelling something so obvious. Plankton's regular be so fine, then boom. Crappy twist ending. Except unlike Patty Caper, which had a lame but ultimately harmless plot twist, the Act 3 surprise here actively destroys the rest of the episode for me. It makes Karen look like a bitch and a half, it reverts the status quo in a groan-worthy way, and it utterly undoes Nat as a character. Who is this Nat? I'm glad you probably asked. Let's talk about the background characters in SpongeBob SquarePants for a few seconds. Nobody really discusses them because, duh, they're just there to fill up background space. But I feel as though they're just as important to the show's identity as any of the main characters are. Sure, they can act like a completely unlikable hive mind in certain episodes, but their contributions to the show with all of the iconic moments they have outweigh any negative things I could say. There are literally hundreds of these fish, yet only one of them can have the honor of being the first to have a spotlight put on them. Introducing Nat, a guy who is so down on his luck that he willingly eats poison multiple times just to avoid going back to his dookie-ass trailer. They should make Nat an actually recurring character, just like they did with Fred. He has a lot of potential in my opinion. Most of Plankton's regular is good. Another example this season of giving Plankton some success. But that garbage ending makes me question my life choices. 6 out of 10, number 32 on the ranking. From what I could find, this is also the first example I recorded of Mr. Krabs calling SpongeBob Boyo in the show, accompanied with an odious cartoon lightbulb gag. Anyone who has ever had Boyo in their online username has this scene to thank for it.
A shortcut to the chum bucket. That must be for me. This isn't the chum bucket.
Alright, nosedive your heads into the depths of hell, because it is time for one of my most fiery hot takes ever. Boating Buddies is goddamn hilarious. Yes, it has SpongeBob acting like a freaky stalker. Yes, it has Squidward going through agonizing PG suffering for no reason whatsoever. Yes, a lot of the humor on display is very slow and, awkward. All of these aspects combined made every mid to late 2010s cartoon reviewer piss blood in their baby bottles. Fortunately for me, I don't give a barnacle. Now is the perfect time for me to talk about the genius cartoonist that is Aaron Springer. Up to this point, he's been with SpongeBob since the very beginning, although he dropped off for most of seasons 3 and 4 to work on other projects, before his glorious return midway through season 5. And his humor and style of cartooning has definitely changed since those early days. His posing is stiff and weird looking, but intentionally so to sell a joke. Expressions are deliberately strange and off-model, with Aaron Springer's SpongeBob design being a standout in this era of the show. It's like the SpongeBob equivalent of Mario's model from Super Mario 64, with how both of them just look like head-empty creatures. And gags are stretched out until they beg for mercy. Aaron Springer has such a precise and calculated cartooning style filled with so many idiosyncrasies that I don't think I've ever seen another cartoonist fully replicate. Even though I'd argue that season 6 is the season where the other writers started trying to copy his style of humor with varying success. Boating Buddies is one of Aaron's finest. Every single joke lands, and they land hard. This episode makes me laugh hard. From the belly. Look at the posing when SpongeBob chases Squidward down the street. Look at SpongeBob drawing on the chalkboard accompanied with classical music alongside Mrs. Puff's live reaction. Look at these silly-ass costumes the characters wear during this boat chase sequence.
Monkey?
Lung-squeezingly good material here. Very high 9 out of 10, crashing into 7th place on the list. Mr. Springer is definitely the most consistently good writer from this era, at least. Especially considering he worked alone and from home for most of it. This just in! The Krabby Kronicle is about as dull as black and white newsprint dumpster fodder. One grudge I hold against this stretch of seasons is that if there's a legitimately inventive idea that they fail to execute on, they can't necessarily try that idea again. You know, without raising any eyebrows with how these persnickety writers are running out of ideas and whatnot. The Krusty Krab starting its own newspaper business is a premise that practically writes itself, funnily enough. But take a wild guess at what actually happens in this episode. SpongeBob prints a lie about someone. SpongeBob feels bad about it and tries to confront Mr. Krabs. Mr. Krabs brushes it off and forces him to write more stories. Barely any jokes are told. Repeat like 4 or 5 times before the ending! If it wasn't obvious, the Krabby Kronicle is repetitive. Is this seriously your A material, you guys? I don't know, have Plankton come in and try to start a rival printing press, or maybe Perch Perkins butts in since Krabs is stealing his news? Something exciting other than another Mr. Krabs is a dickhead story, as well as another It's Bad to Tell Lies story that you've seen a million times. Part of the appeal of SpongeBob SquarePants is that it's a cartoon that never talks down to its audience. Episodes rarely ever exist to teach morals, but rather just serve to be excellent examples of funny cartooning. And if an episode does have a moral in it, it's usually naturally baked into the story they wanted to tell. It doesn't have to be this painfully obvious! I actually just think this one is a dies from mid episode, but I'm only so angry because this concept had so much potential! God!
If you trusted me, you would leave for the night.
You made Kart grinds come out me nose.
Dad!
Alright, that scene is really funny, but what the fuck is this? I know I've made it a running gag in this video for us to point out as many animation errors as we can, but where are the in-between frames? Did they just not feel like showing up? Again, a heavily recurring type of animation error in season number 6. It's a drinking game, Jesus Christ. You know, whales are supposed to be some of the biggest living creatures on Earth, so why wasn't there a single inch of that biggest living creature anywhere in season 5? Okay, I'll let that go. Pearl does return in season 6, and the Slumber Party is her greatest episode so far. She just keeps topping herself. Tom Kenny and Lori Allen's Super Happy Fun Time Sleepover Deluxe is a laugh riot. This is the episode with Girly Teen Girl, a character whose resurgence in popularity is so unexplainable, even FNAF theory YouTubers can't figure it out. The Slumber Party is such a blast. No shenanigans, no yanking your chain, just a good old-fashioned funny scene after funny scene type of episode. The synergy between Krabs and Pearl, SpongeBob and Krabs, and Pearl and SpongeBob are such a treat. This is a very well-balanced episode. 9 out of 10, number 14 on my ranking. I think I've further cracked the code as to why Pearl is a shockingly likable character. It's because her dad is such a cock-sucking pizza fucker that he makes his daughter look like an angel from heaven by comparison. I will fully crack the code on this character someday. Grooming Gary, Grooming Gary, Grooming Gary. What an unfortunate title. Similarly to the Great Snail Race from 3 seasons ago, SpongeBob enters Gerald in some sort of pet-themed competition, where a bunch of crazy hijinks ensue. And by crazy hijinks, I of course mean the Pet Uprising. If you couldn't guess, I consider this to be a slightly better version of the Great Snail Race, since this one doesn't have to drag SpongeBob's character through a bed of needles to make its jokes work. It's not the most entertaining or the most creative out there. In fact, a lot of people see this one as pretty derivative and standard, but it's still poggers compared to most of the other Gary-centric episodes so far. At least it has a competent plot structure, unlike I Was a Teenage Gary. At least it doesn't have an idiotic, asinine premise like Once Bitten. At least it's not a depressing, cringy, quote-unquote parody of soap operas like Dumped! Low 7 out of 10, number 29 on my list. Grooming Gary is one of those episodes that pretty much nobody has that strong of an opinion on, including myself. My mom has always loved jokes in the show where they treat Patrick like an animal though, and I think that's also rubbed off on me because the ending gag is a real high point here. Keep your fetish away from me though. So, apparently, during this generation of the show, most if not all of the specials were ones that were personally demanded by Nickelodeon themselves. Obviously for marketing reasons. Some specials, like Atlantis SquarePants, Whatever Happened to SpongeBob, Truth or Square, and God forbid SpongeBob You're Fired, are examples where this is agonizingly apparent. But then you have SpongeBob SquarePants versus the big one, and like, yeah, I guess this was probably used as a summer advertising special, so that little Bernard will want to buy a Nickelodeon brand SpongeBob popsicle on a hot day or something. But that corporate sellout energy really doesn't come across with the big one. Sure, they have a special guest star that they can advertise with Johnny Depp. Sure, they have filler subplots with Mr. Krabs arguing with the Flying Dutchman in his only Season 6 appearance, and Sandy doing basically nothing. And sure, there's writing inconsistencies like the promise of a character being sacrificed only for them to say psych at the last second. Versus the big one is a special that steps on its own feet a lot. I can't ignore that. However, it's one that comes across to me as very genuine. It doesn't feel like the crew was phoning it in because Nick held them at gunpoint to make a summer-themed special so they'd have something to show off that year. It feels earnest in trying to tell a story that's grander in scope than usual. And it fits the theme of the show with its surfer dude beach vibes. Beeline for a tree line, my beloved. It's an adventure that doesn't exactly have me sweating bullets in anticipation as to what's going to happen next, but it is extremely likable and honest in its attempt. Plus, it's an absolute master in atmosphere, and it's got the laughs to back it up too. Seven surfs out of 10. Number 26th in line for Davy Jones's Locker. Even still, this is another case where everything surrounding the special is actually more intriguing than the episode itself. Burger King tie-in merch, a series of shorts with underrated expressive animation.
Hey Squidward, wanna go surfing?
And a special featured DVD commentary dedicated to Plankton roasting the entire episode. Now this is peak fiction. It's even better than the episode it's commentating on. Roasting humor triumphs once more.
Oh, it's Patrick, that idiot friend of that idiot SpongeBob who works for that idiot Krabs, which leads us back to that idiot Krusty Krab with that idiot safe where that idiot Krabby Patty formula is waiting for idiot me to take it. Wait, that didn't come out right.
When you have money, you need to have money. When you have a plan, you need to have money. When you have cabbage, you need to have...
Looks like I'm going to have to take a stand. There we go. Wanna know another reason why SpongeBob SquarePants connected with so many people? It's because it's anything but generic. Sure, most of the characters are stock archetypes, but they're pushed to such a ludicrous, cartoony extreme that they become lovable. Not to mention the show's world, humor, and flavor are unlike anything in any other show. Coconut Fred.
No, not yay you. Fuck you.
Predictably, stock plots are done in the show, which is fair because they exist for a reason. But they're made unique and engaging in SpongeBob due to either the show's humor strengthening the enjoyment factor, or them just taking a cliche idea in a different direction. And then there's Porous Pockets, which does the character stumbles into a boatload of money and becomes rich and acts like a snobby cunt before eventually losing it all and reset the status quo story narrative. If you've seen literally any other show ever, you know exactly where this is going. Aaron Springer's cartoon genius humor at least makes me want to not kill myself, and Patrick's characterization here genuinely surprised me a lot, with how low-key and down-to-earth he is, but that's it. The pacing here sucks too. SpongeBob becoming a wealthy asshole doesn't even happen until the third act, and most of the scenes before that could have just been straight up cut from the episode. Porous Pockets isn't worth the green paper it's printed on. 5 out of 10, number 37 on the ranking. Here's a tip for anyone who ever wants to make a cartoon or get into the animation industry. If you want to make a cartoon, do something new! Try out things that nobody has ever seen before. Don't be a Porous Pockets. I've been noticeably positive on Season 6 so far, haven't I? Let's change that, shall we? If there's one thing I've learned from actively going out of my way to consume as much media as possible over the past few years, it's that the absolute worst thing any piece of media could be is boring! With a few exceptions, if something pisses me off or infuriates me to no end, it's at least memorably bad or a good learning experience. What am I supposed to get out of something if it bores me to tears? And fuck me running, because an episode like Choir Boys is the kiss of death for a season like this. It's just SpongeBob annoying Squidward while he's on his way to the choir practice. If this episode were in any other era of the show, it'd actually be about the choir practice and not Squidward trying to get to the choir practice. I don't even care that SpongeBob is acting like a creepy weirdo again like he did in Boating Buddies. Like, I really do not give a shit. That is the least of my concerns. And somebody put me out of my misery because the running quote-unquote gag of characters clearing their throats for several seconds makes me want to run into an oncoming train! I'm usually a fan of the way Season 6 does overly long gags, but this is just annoying and filler. It's annoying filler. Possibly the worst bit in the entire show! Fight me! Boring, boring Choir Boys. 3 out of 10, number 43 on the list. Those lower numbers are only gonna get lower. Choir Boys is nothing more than a bad omen for the next 2.5 seasons to come. Just warning y'all. Who fucking Ray? Oh yeah! Krusty Krushers is an episode that puts my heart in a chokehold and never lets go. I'm not really a huge fan of wrestling, it's just not my thing personally, but making an entire SpongeBob episode dedicated to one enormous smackdown gets me so pumped up. In what is by far the most gag-driven episode of Season 6, this one always hits me like a truck whenever I get to it. There's so much slapstick humor here. It's like Looney Tunes on crack. They even brought back the damn My Leg voice clip and even used the Peppino scream from Pizza Tower. Awesome sauce. From beginning to end, this beatdown of an episode is just gag after gag. It's 11 minutes of entertainment that's so simple that even a Neanderthal could understand it. But that's what makes it so glorious. One of my favorite genres of SpongeBob episodes is just taking one or more characters, plopping them in a random setting or scenario, and just watch them go ham. Essentially just the random bullshit go mentality. Sure, these types of stories are usually more situation-driven rather than character-driven, and Krusty Krushers is no exception to this. But I don't really have a preference for one over the other. I only care about if they're done well or not. Dude, imagine if this was a post-sequel episode. It'd already be great, plus an additional bonus of actually good-looking animation, without terrible-looking shortcuts. The animation you're seeing on screen is undoctored footage, by the way. That's how bad it's gotten during this stretch of the show. Extremely choppy animation aside, Krusty Krushers is a 10 out of 10. Number 3 for Season 6. And a dump truck-sized reasoning for that is the sex joke punchline that is Patrick's iron butt. I mean, hey, this probably got a few people bricked up. Did you know that this is also apparently George Lopez's favorite SpongeBob episode? What a silly little man.
You're an gay Luigi? No. The other way around. I know. And you? No pussy. At the end of class, both of you will report to the meatball office. With your mama?
No, please don't turn me into a marketable trading card! Oh wow, this actually isn't too bad. Look at my stats. The balance of nature is a very fickle, yet very tempting mistress. Turns out, my favorite episode of the season so far is paired with my least favorite episode of the season so far. What a tragedy. Remember the trading card episode from Adventure Time? Card Wars from Season 4. It's a cartoon episode about trading cards that actually has a story and jokes and isn't one of the most boring, repetitive, uninspired things ever created by the human race. Patrick's character, more so than any other, has always suffered from personality inconsistencies in the show. Probably because he's schizophrenic or something, I don't know. This is why in betwixt seasons 2 and 9, there are times where he's either a huge asshole or a huge dumbass. I'm talking like a huge dumbass. Except weirdly enough, there's a fourth wall-breaking joke here where Patrick acknowledges his own stupidity inconsistencies, and despite complaints from the community, this is my favorite part of the episode, because it's one of the only parts of the episode where they attempt something funny, other than, wowie thowie, isn't the same setup of Patrick putting the trading card that SpongeBob wants in constant danger over and over and over again so freaking hilarious? Is this supposed to make me not want to kill myself? If they wanted to tell a bunch of cartoon trading card jokes, that's fine, but at least put a unique spin on it or something. The pacing here is dreadful too. Wow, go figure. Did we really need that opening scene of SpongeBob slowly withdrawing money from the bank? If it wasn't apparent by this point, I very much do not care for episodes that rely on one singular joke ad nauseum with little variety. And of course, there's a stupid piece of shit twist at the end. Of course there is. Wouldn't be season 6 without it, am I right, fellas? That's not even how rare trading cards work, you chunky diarrhea. Ooh, but that's the joke. The joke sucks. 2 out of 10, trading card number 44 in the deck. Mirroring the last segment, apparently, the card is one of Tom Kenny's favorite episodes of the show. I'm calling bullshit on that. The survey was held while season 6 was airing, so it's probably just Tom Kenny shamelessly self-promoting. What a card that Tom Kenny is.
Oh, hello!
Well, what do you know? I actually quite liked Dear Vikings. How about you guys?
No, they don't.
Alright, fine, Jesus. In a cartoon where pirates are about as common as air, it makes you wonder what happened to the Vikings. I mean, they're basically just ancient-ass pirates, right? Turns out they were just chilling on some random mountaintop the whole time, and all we had to do to get them to come out of hiding was to send them a letter. Dear Vikings is another in a series of guilty pleasure episodes for me, as it definitely has things that a lot of people understandably dislike. The pacing is really slow, the ending is a non-ending, and most of the actual meat of the episode is just SpongeBob and Squidward having mundane conversations with the Vikings. So basically Shanghaied all over again. Got him! Actually, springboarding off of that Shanghaied comparison, I feel as though people like that one more because the jokes in that one are a lot more overtly cartoony. Whereas here, the funny moments stem from very normal and even low-energy character interactions. It's Aaron Springer's specialty, after all. Flaming shield toss is the most epic sport of all time, and we should follow in the Vikings' footsteps, I think. 8 out of 10, number 21 on my ranking. This is also the first time that a lot of the new original Sailor / Krusty Krab tracks play in the show. They're really good, and if anyone thinks otherwise, we should catapult them into outer space! Ditchin'? More like... big props to the writers for creating one of the most charming SpongeBob episodes ever invented. Yeah, Ditchin' is great. Wow! High 8 out of 10, number 17 on my list. Plunging straight into it, you'd assume that an episode with this much of a cliche and simplistic premise would be uninteresting as all hell, and only exist to teach a generic and overdone moral to the kiddies. Gee, it sure would be an unfortunate scenario if they actually went through with an episode like that, wouldn't it? Ditchin' doesn't just dodge this bullet, it dodges a missile. This story works because it doesn't take its own premise that seriously. It's self-aware that its own existence is a cataclysmic cliche, and uses this setup as a jumping off point for really solid comedy. It feels very slice of lifey, but in a really creative way. There's an upward escalation to the narrative as well, culminating in the first arrest of Mrs. Puff since pre-movie. That's one more for her criminal record. This is when SpongeBob's character is at its best in my opinion, when his own ignorance and optimistic nature gets in his own way. And when he gets the courage to finally return Mrs. Puff's bathroom key, it's oddly satisfying. And I feel very proud of the little guy. Weird how in the last season, Luke Brookshire wrote most of the best episodes in Season 5, while there were barely any of Casey or Zeus's episodes I actually liked. Yet in Season 6, it's the complete opposite. Most of their episodes this season are certified bangers, and we'll get to their best one very soon.
I'll always cherish those last kind words that you said to me.
That bitch!
Another surprise relative episode? Another one? Dies from cringe. Haha, just kidding, I actually like Grandpa Redbeard. Shocking, I know. Unlike someone like SpongeBob's cousins from last season, Grandpa Redbeard works because he's used to flesh out Mr. Krabs as a character, delving a tiny bit more into his pirate life before the Krusty Krab. He also works because his one personality trait isn't irritating. Grandpappy the Pirate is essentially just Squilliam Returns again, with a character lying to another character about something so they have to turn the Krusty Krab into something else to keep the lie going. Except this one must have been written with golden octopus ink because I actually find this one entertaining. Yeah, it's another liar revealed setup, but it's a liar revealed setup with pirates! And that's another point we can add to the docket of things that Season 6 does better than Season 5. Better surprise relative episodes. Mainly because it actually feels organic here and not forced like Blackjack. At least Grandpa Redbeard would later reappear again in the series, even if it was just a cameo. 8 out of 10, number 23 on my ranking. Not much else to really say about this one. The animation errors here are running rampant though, and they keep getting worse! Yes! Animation errors, as in plural. Here are just a few of them. Give these animators the time and resources they need, you chodes. Among many others, one of Season 6's most prominent running themes is fucking hating Squidward. They'll kick Squidward, kick him again while he's down, kick him multiple times until he dies, and then kick his gravestone and spit on his epitaph. I still can't believe that for years now, people gaslighted themselves into thinking that Squidward was one of the characters who went through some kind of drastic personality change after the first movie. He's exactly the same! At best, they just use him slightly differently. And in a season that uses him a lot, some are bound to be better than others. If you haven't caught on to my pattern by now, despite being an episode that the fanbase has ripped into like tissue paper, I actually really like Cephalopod Lodge. Up until, and say it with me now kids, the ending! I don't normally care about the circumstances regarding Squidward's suffering. If they can wring a funny episode out of it, that's all I care about. Like how people bitch about, my god, SpongeBob and Patrick want to ruin Squidward's life because he's happy. Okay, first of all, yeah, Squidward being exceedingly happy is diabolically out of character for him and would raise an eyebrow for anybody, even SpongeBob. And second of all, SpongeBob and Patrick didn't try to ruin Squidward's life. It was a complete accident that they felt extremely bad about and spent the whole episode trying to correct. That's why I was so on board with this one before the ending. It was setting itself up as a redemption story for the Doofus duo. And of course, for the first time since Squidville, seeing some more octopi occupying the screen was a treat. The ending just smashes everything they had built up and comes across as lazy writing for the sake of a cheap and boring punchline. It's not like Squidward never wins in Season 6, so I'm sure they could have made an exception here. 7 cephalopods out of 10. Number 28 on my list. Would have been higher if the ending didn't piss on my heart. For a season that's old enough to drive a car now, I really hope people still don't hold grudges against the show because of episodes like this. Even if, again, I actually like it. Didn't need this blatant misinfo from the SpongeBob wiki though. That made doing research for this video really goddamn annoying. See, this is exactly what I was talking about. Squid's Visit, being the earliest memory I have of seeing an episode advertised on TV, is probably the pitch-perfect example to show how SpongeBob and Squidward's dynamic has changed over the show so far. Before, SpongeBob and Squidward were usually paired up with each other to go on some kind of perilous adventure, or overcome some obstacle that they happen to be caught in the crossfire of. Pizza Delivery, Graveyard Shift, and SquidBob Tentacle Pants are good showcases of this. And even when their episodes are smaller in scale, they're still at odds with each other while still keeping SpongeBob's innocence intact. See The Paper, Just One Bite, and Slimy Dancing. Now, in these teenage seasons of the show, SpongeBob and Squidward's dynamic is completely one-sided. SpongeBob is now creepily obsessed with Squidward, to the point where he's memorized the entirety of the interior of his house in perfect detail. SpongeBob has always annoyed Squidward, but now it's pushed to the max. The other writers are even adopting Aaron Springer's idiosyncrasies, having slow, drawn-out gags, and even drawing SpongeBob with the dreaded Springer cheek. And you know what? I like both approaches. Both have the potential to be written well, but also have the potential to be written poorly. Squid's Visit falls in the exact bloody middle of this, because of course it does, why wouldn't it? I don't hate this one, but my biggest problem with it, internet reviewers be damned, is that they don't push it far enough. It's supposed to be this really disturbing and dark episode about how SpongeBob is consumed by Squidward, to the point of being a crazy bitch ex-girlfriend stalker. But because the visuals and atmosphere here are so generic and plain, it doesn't really sell that idea for me. It just feels like another regular episode. Squidward having a 10-second mental breakdown at the end doesn't count. It's too little too late. The show has better psychological thriller episodes, both before and after this. 6 out of 10, number 33 on the list. Considering the fact that Roger Bumpus, Squidward's voice actor, is the biggest SpongeBob fan in the entire solar system, I wonder how he felt about voicing in the episode where his favorite character is the face of his night terrors.
Here's the dick you wanted.
Nope. Pussy.
In what is yet another effort from Season 6 to put the characters through some drastic changes, they made SpongeBob change his clothes? I mean, sheesh, it's about time. This nasty-ass bastard has been wearing the same rectangular trousers for about a decade up to this point. Except unlike its other brothers in arms this season, such as Not Normal and No Nose Nose, which felt like genuine creative attempts at new stories, To SquarePants or Not to SquarePants, fucking stupid-ass title, feels like it only exists so Nickelodeon could have a crazy new episode to market. Gee, what gave you that idea? This is evidenced by the fact that they didn't really put much effort in the writing. Like, wow, the solution to the problem was for SpongeBob to just take off his pants? What about the fact that the only reason why SpongeBob tries to reset his life is because a series of comical misunderstandings happen? Whoa! You guys can get a little more creative than that. Come on now. Or maybe you can't. This kind of stuff just happens when you're running on fumes, I suppose. Episodes tend to blend in with each other. 6 out of 10, again. Number 30 on my ranking. I mean, hey, at least there's a few good bits here. This is one of the most fine episodes ever. The most memorable things to come out of this idea are Dump Truck Gary and Patrick's face on the cover of this book. Bro hit him with the...
SpongeBob saved the secret formula.
You know, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just built different or whatever, but I don't necessarily like clickbait content. I don't know, maybe it's because its entire design is to piss people off with false advertising. Having a SpongeBob episode actually clickbait the audience with a false title wasn't on my SpongeBob Season 6 bingo card, but sure, go ahead. I love being blue-balled! You'd have to actively go out of your way to make a Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episode as lame as possible, but boy howdy, they sure found a way! This isn't even the first time, either. I think I speak for everyone when I say that I would have actually liked to see Mental Matador and Barfight Bong participate in this alleged shuffleboarding tournament. Or at least have SpongeBob and Patrick actually go in their place. Shuffleboarding seriously feels like they ran out of ideas halfway through the writing process, but because Nickelodeon's fist is made out of iron, they had to run with whatever their first draft of the episode ended up being. Basically, think exactly what irritated me about Sandy's rocket, yet somehow the second half of this episode is even more disconnected from the first half. With SpongeBob and Patrick going around town and arresting a bunch of people for stupid reasons. A surprise appearance by Man Ray and the last use of the original My Leg gag in the show are not enough to salvage what is honestly a really pathetic and stupid SpongeBob and Patrick dicking around story. 3 out of 10, number 41 on my list. It really is impressive that they managed to make one of the most sauceless SpongeBob episodes ever made. Mermaid Pants and Barnacle Star absolutely clear these frauds. Squilliam spotted! Quick, honey, get the camera! He may get like one line in this entire thing, but still, I'll take whatever crumbs I can get! Eat a dick, Vincent Waller! Surprise, surprise, this is yet another Squidward Gets Shit episode. Surprise, surprise, this is yet another Aaron Springer dry humor episode. And surprise of all surprises, this is yet another Squidward Gets Shit episode by Aaron Springer that I actually really like. Professor Squidward is pretty contentious with a lot of people. Not even just for the generic reasons like you'd expect, but even people who like Aaron Springer's dry humor in Season 6 aren't fond of this one. I'm going to presume that this is another Dear Vikings scenario where, unlike Boating Buddies and Pineapple Fever, which have a complete madcap breakneck energy to them, which makes them delightful to watch, Professor Squidward doesn't have much going on. Squidward doesn't even get to teach his damn music class. Most of this one is just dedicated to Squidward getting fucked with by SpongeBob and Patrick, Patrick. And look, I'm aware that these types of episodes, especially during this chunk of the show, don't resonate with a lot of people due to how lethargic they are, but this is right up my alley personally. This episode alone has like 5 all-timer jokes in it. The Billy bit, the tickling gag, SpongeBob's well-toned thighs, Squidward roasting the news reporter, and this dumbass fucking train bit with Patrick makes me giggle like a hyena. Where did those train tracks come from? How did Patrick shrink down to fit inside the train? It is an utter non sequitur that has nothing to do with anything, yet it slays me every single time. 9 out of 10, number 10 on my ranking. Even when an episode doesn't really have an investing plot set in motion, Aaron Springer's cartoon genius humor still keeps me engaged, which is more than I can say for Choir Boys. Or, like, the next episode. Okay, so I guess a crappy Aaron Springer episode just so happened to be sandwiched between 2 really good ones. Looks like we got another poop sandwich situation on our hands. Or Pests joins the ranks of The Splinter, Choir Boys, and Cephalopod Lodge as one of the most universally despised episodes in all of Season 6. And let me just say, speaking as someone who was one of the biggest defenders of Season 6, someone who thinks a lot of its best episodes are really underrated, someone who is absolutely smitten over its stupid, dry anti-humor, someone who can find positives in, or even flat out enjoys some of its most scorned episodes. Even someone like me has to admit that Or Pests is kinda bad. Like, rating it a 3 out of 10 bad, 42nd place on the list bad. I don't even know why they made this, and it's just an obvious waste of your time bad. Well, what's wrong with this one compared to the other detested episodes from this season? Why doesn't this one work for me when so many others do? What's the story? Well, SpongeBob finds a worm and takes it home as a new pet, but soon finds out that it's a girl when it gives birth. And when Gary chases her away, SpongeBob has to find new homes for these sins of nature. It's just another boring, generic Season 6 premise, and absolutely nothing is done to make it stand out in any sort of way. Outside of the copious amounts of gross out, but you know, Season 6 has a lot of that already. Also, the ending just kind of sneaks up on you, and the conflict just kind of solves itself by the end. Hoorah! What about the jokes? The funny, if you will. Maybe I'm just splitting hairs here, considering nearly every Aaron Springer episode this season has nearly the same exact style of humor, but most of the attempts at jokes here don't really land for me. I don't even know how I feel about this scene of SpongeBob ringing Mrs. Puff's doorbell for over 35 goddamn seconds! Weirdly enough, this is also one of the fuggliest looking episodes in the entire show as well. And I'm not even talking about just the gross out either. That's just a result of them, for once, trying to actually capture Aaron Springer's unconventional art style throughout the entire episode, instead of just fleeting moments here and there. They only went halfway with it though, and because of that, it looks extremely hideous. And this is coming from someone who actually likes the Springer Cheeks SpongeBob design. I just wish there was an episode of the show where they let Aaron Springer go all out with his visuals, like they let C.H. Greenblatt do for Fear of a Krabby Patty. Other than that, really, what else am I supposed to talk about with Or Pests? The underwater atmosphere? I don't particularly think anyone is going to Or Pests for the underwater atmosphere. It's an unengaging, generic snooze fest episode. That's all that needs to be said. Next. It's been a hot minute since the last Plankton episode. It might even be a cold minute too. I feel like if there's anything at all, that people can undeniably, unquestionably say that SpongeBob as a show only got better and better at as it kept going, it's making Karen Plankton An interesting, well-rounded character with an enjoyable, snarky, sarcastic personality. It's really easy to weed out the people who hate everything the SpongeBob franchise has ever done after the first SpongeBob movie, based off of their opinions on this cold-hearted, calculated computer. Komputer Overload is the first episode in the entire series where Karen really has a standout role, even if said standout role is just her hurling insults at Plankton like an Angry Birds catapult. Seriously, combine the fact that Plankton is always funny with Karen starting to finally find her role in the show, and you get one of the greatest, funniest, most fleshed out character dynamics in the entire SpongeBob pantheon.
Honestly, I don't think anyone in Bikini Bottom would know a decent meal if it looked them right in the eye and said, "Hello, I'm a decent meal. Wonderful to meet you. Please pay money for me and then put me in your mouth so your old pal Plankton doesn't lose everything he spent his entire life working for."
Yeah, and if anyone ever did order one of your meals, it probably would look them in the eye.
Like, damn it, man, that's so good! You're entitled to think that characters like SpongeBob, Sandy, Patrick, and Krabs went down the shitter as the show went on, even if I don't personally fully agree. But at the very least, take a gander at Komputer Overload, an episode with a marriage crisis plot that doesn't feel like a marriage crisis plot. It's so unserious the entire time, proven by the fact that Plankton's ultimate plan fell flat on its face because his super death robot Frankensteined together out of a windmill, a water cooler, and a hairdryer didn't have a long enough extension cord. Like, be fucking for real right now. That's such a Plankton thing to do. 9 out of 10. Number 9 on my motherboard. Easily the best Plankton episode of the entire season. Even if you're someone who hates Season 6, Komputer Overload is a huge recommendation from me, as it practically has none of the pitfalls that Season 6 is infamous for. Plankton may not be my favorite character, but that doesn't stop him from being an absolute chadpole.
Well, if you must know.
There's nothing wrong with Chum Bucket fare. Why, look, here's a fresh batch of a delicious new chum sauce. It's called Spicy Chum Surprise.
It's here, it's here, it's here, it's here. It's here.
Hey look, it's my not reaction to Gullible Pants. If you want the perfect example as to what kind of episodes a lot of seasons 7 and 8 are going to be made up of, then look no further than this snooze fest. An episode that falls into the nobody's favorite episode of the season category. An episode that's only worthwhile for like 2 fleeting moments of slight humor, and a sick-as-heck looking Robert Ryan Corey drawing. An episode that has been upstaged in its premise both beforehand with Squid's Day Off from Season 2, and afterwards with Boss for a Day from Season 12. An episode that I wouldn't call the most useless SpongeBob experience out there, but skirts that line of being pretty damn close. An episode that is just so boring and stupid! Kill me! In my attempt to at least entertain the thought of reviewing this episode in a fair and interesting manner, I tried to do some research to see if I could dig up anything about it, and the only thing I found were these kinda neat doodles that Vincent Waller did. Probably because he was bored. Like I was watching this. 4 out of 10, number 40 on my ranking. A SpongeBob episode that's just going through the motions, that's completely on autopilot, and nothing more. And for a season that's as genuinely interesting as Season 6, that's deplorable. Everyone has that one trope in fiction that they just absolutely cannot stand no matter the circumstance. Some people don't like Fantastic Voyage tropes. I have a friend who doesn't like episodes of shows where characters LARP as cops. And I've even heard of people who don't like time travel stories. Whatever is wrong with those people, I will never know. For me, one trope that always makes my blood boil no matter how many times I see it is what is known as the 2-timer date cliche on TV tropes. This applies to when a character makes multiple commitments with multiple people at the same time, and tries to honor those commitments all at once. It's a shitty sitcom stock plot that's become so widespread over the years that cartoons either do these by instinct due to the cultural osmosis of the idea, or you'll have other cartoons where they outright make fun of the trope due to how common and obnoxious it is.
Oh, this is like one of those sitcoms where somebody says something that's misconstrued and the snoopy next-door neighbor gets the wrong package delivered after his in-laws come to visit and somebody has 2 dates on the same night and they have to paint a white line down the middle of the room.
SpongeBob SquarePants, unfortunately, falls in the former category, forcing SpongeBob to go to Sandy's invention unveiling in what I believe is her only major appearance throughout the entire season. That's pretty pathetic. Show up to Patrick's birthday party, and help Mr. Krabs build a telescope all in the same night. And don't worry, because they make sure to include all of the sub-tropes within the trope, such as SpongeBob never just explaining the situation to his friends, not sticking with the first commitment he made, which is what people should do in these situations, in my opinion, and SpongeBob getting caught up in his web of lies by the end. Blah, 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 snore! I am aware that SpongeBob is the type of character to be tangled up in a situation like this, so it makes giving constructive criticism here really hard due to my personal sensibilities. Overbooked is the kind of episode that gives me secondhand embarrassment. The kind of episode that makes me roll my eyes into the back of my skull. Not to mention, it's made extra unpleasant by the fact that SpongeBob is treated like garbage by all of his friends the entire time. And then, at the end, they have the goddamn gall to pull this!
Aw, you overextended yourself.
Yeah, you should have said something. We could have worked something out.
Fuck you! No! You don't just point out your own cliches at the very end and expect me to not feel like I've just wasted my time! You sack of fuck! 2 out of 10. Number 45 on my list. It's a 2 and not a 1 because... I don't know, I kinda liked the scabies joke. It even stems from Casey Alexander's personal experiences. How poetic is it that this is also the last aired SpongeBob episode to ever use the old Nickelodeon logo? Man. Clue, you're probably exhausted from editing all of those segments, so I think it's about time we switch over to our last editor for this video.
Patrick, you need to get their attention, boy.
Okay.
As stated before, the Patrick-centric episodes during this era of the show keep playing quality ping pong. Just in this season alone, we've had a good Patrick episode, then a bad Patrick episode, and then another good Patrick episode. They just could not make up their minds if they wanted to make this pink punk likable or not. No Hat for Pat is the first time in SpongeBob where I'd argue that they just straight up reused an episode idea. Both this and Big Pink Loser from Season 2 are about Patrick getting a job at the Krusty Krab, even going as far as to have his motivation for doing so being the exact same both times, with Patrick taking this position because he actually wants to make something out of his life. Of course, both episodes go in exponentially different directions, and I'm not saying SpongeBob reusing ideas is a bad thing on the surface. Long-running franchises like Looney Tunes reuse ideas all the time, yet nobody ever complains about that. It's all about the execution! I still like Big Pink Loser more due to liking that episode's jokes more than this one's story, but that shouldn't discredit No Hat for Pat at all. Funnily enough, this is actually a fan favorite from Season 6. It must have struck a chord with a lot of people. It's one of the only examples I can think of in the show where one of the characters actually has depth to them. And that character is Patrick! He's usually the most carefree guy you'll ever meet, but this episode says that he's actually really insecure about himself and how people view him. To my knowledge, this facet of Patrick's character is never brought up ever again, so take it while you can. This kind of depth in SpongeBob is even more rare than finding a shiny Pokemon in the wild. High 7 out of 10, number 25 for Season 6. They certainly had a vein fetish for Season 6, though. Look at Mr. Krabs' neck in this scene. My god. Also, Squidward willingly tries to push Patrick off of a diving board to his potential death. Because who else but Squidward? Eat Squidward, Squidward. You never really know what he's gonna do next. Eat Squidward, Squidward. I stole this bit from another YouTuber. And now, finally, I think it's about time I let our guest star for the Season 6 video steal the stage and talk about why he loves an episode of the Funny Sponge Show. Allow me to introduce the Glad and Gladiator. He may be a small content creator, but his heart is huge, and I love his content. Take it away, Glad, or Gladiator, whatever you go by. That name is kind of confusing.
Hiya folks, I'm Jake and I preside over the YouTube channel known as The Glad and Gladiator, where I discuss both nostalgic and current animated media. One of my favourite episodes from Season 6 of SpongeBob is No Hat for Pat, which follows Patrick on his quest to obtain a piece of headwear, as well as the lengths he goes to keep it, since he believes the hat to be a symbol of his worth. When people look at this episode, they often can't help but draw comparisons to the Season 2 episode Big Pink Loser, since they both feature Patrick working at the Krusty Krab after he becomes jealous of something SpongeBob has. However, it's within the stark differences between them we find an example of how the show's sensibilities changed over time. Big Pink Loser is an amazing top-tier episode, but has little going for it aside from being funny. It's not interested in telling us why Patrick wants an award, that is simply the catalyst for a series of gags involving him working at the Krusty Krab. No Hat for Pat, meanwhile, is an introspective look at Patrick we aren't often treated to, exploring his insecurities even if it is very surface level. Whenever I'm discussing Patrick, one thing I always bring up is that for the C star to be written well, there has to be a clear internal logic behind him, which essentially means Patrick should have a reason behind his actions, even if it only makes sense to him. It's something many Patrick appearances overlook, which is why episodes often struggle with his portrayal. This episode fully understands Patrick, communicating why he wants a hat and what it represents to him, proof that he's worth something, turning a simple story into one of the most engaging episodes of the series. SpongeBob is also great here, with the absorbent yellow one acting as the voice of reason, his role highlighting his friendship with Patrick as he is fully ready to stand up to Mr. Krabs when he feels his best friend is being taken advantage of. While it's not particularly funny and could have used some more time to flesh out its ending, No Hat for Pat joins a group of Season 6 episodes that attempted to push the storytelling and characters forward, becoming a true bright spot during an era of the series that wasn't always consistent. Huge thanks to Luke for inviting me to be a part of this, and I hope y'all enjoy the rest of the video.
If I haven't already convinced you that Season 6's pacing makes me want to claw my own eyes out, then I hope Toy Store of Doom is the catalyst. I'm fucking infatuated with episodes that take their sweet-ass time to set up their own story, so by the time anything interesting actually happens, it's pretty much already over. I swear to God, guys, I am going insane! By the time SpongeBob and Patrick get locked in the toy store at the halfway mark, all that happens is that 1, there's one scene where they hallucinate the toys being evil, and 2, they fight a miniature toy robot that they think is threatening. Oh boy, look at us, we're a real SpongeBob episode, guys! Why not just start the episode at the toy store? You only have 11 minutes to tell your toy story, so just get to the point! God damn it! However, the only reason I'm not going to give this one a low score is because it has the Homer Simpson fish! Yeah, let's go! If any SpongeBob storyboard artists somehow catch wind of this video, please bring back the Homer Simpson fish in an episode, I beg of you! He's the only thing here worth watching. And there's actually a decent amount of jokes that I like, so even if the pacing is a prick on a stick, at least it has that to fall back on. 6 out of 10, number 34 on my list.
Toys, glorious toys! La, 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 toys! Yeah!
Wow, he rocks that man too. I want one! Gimme! Well, I'll be a son of a beach. Sandcastles in the Sand answers the question of, how do we make sand interesting? And damn, did they make it interesting! What is essentially just snowball effect if they weren't cowards and actually committed to their premise. This is one of the most this goes hard episodes of all time. What makes Sandcastles so outstanding is how far they push their limits. What starts off as some punk-ass bully kicking down a kid's sandcastle escalates into an all-out blitzkrieg composed of tanks, robots, fighter jets, missiles, and more. And what makes it so enjoyable is that SpongeBob and Patrick are on an equal playing field the entire time. This applies to both their weaponry and their maturity. This is one of those times where SpongeBob and Patrick act like two little kids fighting in a sandbox, but they push this battle so far that you'd think they wrote this episode's script on sandpaper too. The scene where they basically roast the fact that the word frisbee is copyrighted is just mwah. Honestly, there's not much I can really add here that people haven't already said before. This one is so good that opposed to being a fan favorite for just season 6, it's a fan favorite for the whole show. There's even not just one, but 2 online flash games based off of this episode. They look not very fun and low budget as all hell, but still, look at them go. 10 out of 10, and it's my favorite episode of the entire season, and one of my favorite episodes of the entire franchise. Yeah, that may be a cliche and generic opinion, but even I have to admit that sometimes the majority can be right about something. I ain't no contrarian, or at least I don't try to be. Sandcastles in the Sand is the climax of Season 6's summer obsession, and what an explosive, epic, and just downright awesome way to end it.
What the fuck?
Uh-oh, now look what you've done. You broke your snail shell again.
Yeah.
Now what do I do?
You come on down to Angry Jack Hell Emporium!
The wife's gone for good, so I'm gonna sell all these shells. I mean, what can I say? He's a good salesman. Season 6's Gary episodes are funny because they're neither really good nor really bad. They're just kinda okay, decent, around that territory basically. When SpongeBob accidentally shatters Gary's shell to smithereens, our simple-minded Sponge must splurge his hard-earned spending money on a shiny, silky, slime-covered snail skeleton. But who cares about that, because yo, my man Angry Jack is here! Jack is real mad. He's seething with rage. Whoa, wacky! Based on a local LA businessman named Crazy Gideon, Angry Jack has the personality of a firecracker and does wonders to make this episode more memorable. Angry Jack's angry back must hurt like hell for how hard he carries this one. Shell Shocked is one of those ones where they put all of their pussy into one scene and joke, and then the rest is just kind of whatever. It has sluggish pacing, punnily enough, mostly relies on one joke, blah blah blah. Once again, an example of how Nickelodeon's constant whip cracking really harmed the production of the show around this time. 6 Angry Jacks out of 10, number 31 on the ranking. The world could barely handle 1 Angry Jack. How are they going to handle 6? I mean, hey, I may not have much to say about Shell Shocked, but I got a pretty rad, snazzy shell out of it. Play one of those Crazy Gideon commercials to close us off.
I'm giving you for $79 home theater. If you don't buy for Crazy Gideon, you have a problem with your head. Hurry before I change my mind!
It's drink! Use the drink!
It's kelp juice, you want some?
Hey everyone! Chum is fun! Yep, it's that episode! We finally get another chance to see two characters who don't normally have one-on-one interactions squished together into a gooey, messy pulp. Patrick and Plankton team up to advertise the Chum Bucket, giving Plankton another taste of success. Like, genuine success, unlike Plankton's regular. And making a fine-as-hell catchphrase out of it. There's never a dull moment with these two. They work off of each other so well. I mean, I'd hope that any show that has the supervillain and the dumb moron interacting with each other would produce a lot of laughs. Plankton's sharp tongue combined with Patrick's slow wit make for such a classic-feeling team-up. Thankfully, this won't be the last time we'll prominently see these two together, and I'm glad the writers enjoy writing their fire chemistry as much as I enjoy watching it. Okay, the ending is very abrupt, and okay, SpongeBob and Krabs kind of feel shoehorned in. But that's all water under the bridge, you know? Chum Bucket Supreme has no doubt become yet another widely beloved Season 6 episode, and is seen as an absolute classic. I mean, come on! Chum is very indeed fun. What do you think of this episode, Plankton?
Oh boy, this is so... good.
See, this is why Plankton has always remained popular in the public consciousness for so long. He's not only just funny on his own, but he's funny around the other characters too. Even though I think most of the other characters have remained consistently funny throughout most of the show, but that's neither here nor there. And here, we have example B as to why Season 6 is where Karen starts to feel like an actual character. Sure, Plankton treats her like garbage sometimes, and sure, it's gonna take a little bit more time for Karen to come out of her motherboard and star in her own episode, but at the end of the day, Plankton and Karen really do love each other. Even if sometimes Karen can be a bitch and Plankton can be an egomaniac. Honestly comical how the show's main antagonist is the one who arguably has the best and longest lasting love life in the series. You've seen the husband forgets his marriage anniversary, which makes wife furious and causes them to fight and argue plot in 1001 shows. It's a sitcom cliche that's probably going to outlast the human species. But you haven't seen how SpongeBob does it. Unlike Overbooked, this one takes its generic setup you've seen a million times and does something very touching with it. Single Cell Anniversary gives the viewer a lot and doesn't ask for anything in return. A really sweet musical number, an emotional core that's the size of Plankton's ego, and some one-on-one SpongeBob and Plankton interactions in what feels like the first time since forever ago. Fuck, I love when these two are together and are working towards a common goal. Name another show where the hero and villain are just this chill with each other. That's right, you can't! You probably can, actually. 9 out of 10, number 11 on the list. This one gets bonus points because, yeah, Plankton, being the hateable little bastard he is, just wanted the Krabby Patty secret formula in the end, but his feelings for Karen are honest and true. Whatever they end up doing for the Plankton movie, I'll be there for it. He has such a deliciously devious personality, and it's episodes like this that remind me why I worship this little dude. So, it's come to this, huh? SpongeBob's huge, bombastic 10th anniversary TV movie. I miss when shows were able to do this. Most cartoons nowadays don't even get to celebrate their 2-year anniversary, let alone 10. If you even have the slightest bit of SpongeBob knowledge, you'd know that Truther Square has been ripped a new asshole by every single corner of the internet, much like Atlantis SquarePants. Except here, the scrutinizing is much more severe. You know, makes sense given that this is the show's big 10th anniversary special, and much like Atlantis SquarePants, this was originally planned out as being just another regular 11-minute episode, titled Stuck in the Freezer. But when Nickelodeon's eyes got blinded by dollar signs for a marketing opportunity for their biggest show ever, they jumped at the chance. Do I think the backlash for Truth or Square is a little overblown like it was for Atlantis? Do I have another patented Luke Vaughn Season 6 unpopular opinion and think this one is actually good? No! I don't! Truth or Square is very, 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 very bad. One of the worst in the entire show, as a matter of fact. You've heard all of the complaints before. But I'm going to run down the laundry list of problems anyways. Circling back to quote-unquote stuck in the freezer, this probably would have made for a fine episode. Maybe even a really good one. So extending it far past its expiration date is going to bring up some unavoidable problems. What a shock. The story here is that the Krusty Krab is having its 117th anniversary celebration, which is their biggest event ever. However, SpongeBob, Squidward, Mr. Krabs, and Patrick end up getting locked inside the Krusty Krab's freezer, and must navigate the restaurant's air ducts to find a way out. Meanwhile, Plankton tries to steal the Krabby Patty secret formula for the millionth time, and Patchy the Pirate heads to Nickelodeon Studios so he can meet SpongeBob. And throughout, all of the characters reminisce on past experiences they've had together because anniversary, that's why. Truth or Square is the longest episode of the entire show, by the way, not counting all of the shortened versions where they cut out some scenes. The full version reaches the time of around an hour long, which is a new personal best. It's also the first episode to be produced in the now industry standard 16:9 aspect ratio. Why didn't they just fully commit to the change at that point? Your guess is as good as mine. So, yeah, an hour of characters crawling through air ducts, Plankton trying to steal the formula in the most boring way possible, and Patchy talking to random celebrities. They really do not execute well on this already wafer-thin premise, adding a boatload of filler scenes to pad out the special. Speaking of which, yeah, I'm sure all the kids tuning in totally cared about all the celebrity cameos. These scenes suck, and that extends to the Patchy stuff too. Worst Patchy segments in the entire series, no contest, despite the occasional funny moment.
Ooh, now that's what I call service. With a smile.
Just monotonous, unfunny filler garbage from celebrities I either don't know, straight up don't care about, or on the off chance a celebrity shows up that I do actually like, such as Will Ferrell or Robin Williams. They just feel so forced in and they have, nothing to do. At least SpongeBob's big birthday blowout had the foresight to cram most of the celebrity cameos at the very end. Apparently, Tom Kenny and Robin Williams were actually friends? Also, apparently, according to Paul Tibbett, these were the most fun the crew has ever had filming for the Patchy segments. Well, now I just feel like a prick for not liking them. That's what Truth or Square does to you. It makes you feel bad. How about the fact that some of the flashbacks here were scientifically engineered to be clickbait trailer fodder, like SpongeBob marrying Sandy, or Mr. Krabs finally revealing the Krabby Patty secret formula? That seems like a lot of unnecessary, cumbersome trouble to go through, just to scam the time and attention out of children, don't you think? And gadzooks, we're still not done. Truth or Square sure does disappoint on all fronts. How about the fact that the conflict gets solved in a really easy and anticlimactic way that really, they could have solved at any time? Hooray! So, Truth or Square sounds like it'd be a candidate for the single worst episode of the entire show, right? Well, yes and no. Unlike some of the absolute bottom of the barrel shit, there are a few scenes here that I can point to and say that I really enjoyed. Mainly the parts where they give the art style a good shake-up. Stop motion, UPA, rubber hose, it's all really well done. There's even a scene where they recreate the show's theme song with the other characters, which I enjoy way more than I should. And look, this is even the last time they've ever used that running gag from season 1 of Patrick falling off of his rock. So at the very least, that should make Truth or Square higher than a 1 out of 10, right? I mean, yeah, you can assume that, but it's not really true. At best, it's like a 1.5 out of 10 and is second to last place for the entire season. I don't do decimal ratings for these videos, this is just for the visual. Truth or Square overall is abysmal and a horrible way to celebrate the show's big 1-0. It's extremely boring, has way too much filler, forced celebrity cameos, actual genuine clickbait material, and the only thing that doesn't make this the complete worst package is that none of the characters here are outright unlikable. What an embarrassment. And you want to know the worst part about all of this? The main thing that makes me ashamed of even being a SpongeBob fan? Truth or Square is the earliest memory I have of watching a new SpongeBob episode live on Premiere. As unfortunate as that is. Yeah, Luke, here's what's going to be your favorite cartoon and your #1 hyperfixation of all time. Here's 2 of the show's shittiest specials as your first exposure. I have never played the Truth or Square video game, but there's no doubt in my mind that it wipes the floor with the episode it's based on.
Stay away from the tulips!
Thankfully, the 20th anniversary is only another decade away, and unsurprisingly, it puts Truth or Square to shame. We'll get there eventually, but for now, we have a 6th season to wrap up. This is my second favorite episode in all of Season 6. Put the rating up on screen. I bet you have the funniest look on your face right now. Let me explain myself. Being the brainchild of Aaron Springer and Derek Iverson, Pineapple Fever is about SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward getting trapped in SpongeBob's house during a lightning storm, and the comedy basically writes itself from there. Every scene, from Squidward yelling at SpongeBob for turning the lights off for no reason, to Spob and Pat not knowing the rules of tic-tac-toe somehow, to SpongeBob randomly dressing up as a cop to enforce the rules of a game that Squidward made up. This isn't just comedy gold, it's comedy platinum. The sound effects, the line deliveries, even the music cues. Everything here feels like it was specifically cherry-picked to appeal to my stupid-ass sensibilities. I think what makes the writing so strong here is that the jokes build onto each other. Take this scene, for instance. Patrick doesn't know where the last piece of a jigsaw puzzle goes, despite being, you know, the last piece. Then they add another layer to the gag by having Patrick be so stumped by this puzzle that the sheer stress causes him to age by several decades. And then, Squidward comes in and yells at them and reveals where the last piece of the puzzle goes, to which SpongeBob accuses Squidward of cheating in a jigsaw puzzle. And then, finally, Squidward snaps and tries to run home before immediately getting struck down by lightning. This episode is like a delicious layered cake. Oh yeah, and this episode features what is probably my favorite filler scene in anything ever.
Drinking hot tea.
I thought it was Cuckoo!
Oh yeah, hot cocoa. We'll be drinking.
That's better.
I don't even need to convince anyone how glorious this one is. All I have to do is show this singular frame on screen. perfection. Pineapple Fever is the apex of Season 6's stupid anti-humor, and it's the crescendo of every single Aaron Springer episode in not just this season, but this entire era of the show. It's what I consider to be one of the funniest episodes in SpongeBob history. And you know what? I might even go as far as to say that it's second funniest only to I Had an Accident. Yeah! Let's close off this masterpiece with one final 21st century humor edit for this video, shall we?
Tic-tac-toe. Tic-tac-toe. Tic-tac-toe.
Well, I think I'll die.
Even if I let you borrow my fingers?
No!
Squidward, the lights went off.
Well, I guess if you wanted the extremely specific niche request of a SpongeBob episode that focuses on plankton and takes place in a cave, then here's your fix. Finally reaching the climax of Season 6's motto of, let's see Plankton actually win for a little bit, Chum Caverns takes it in a different direction than, say, Chum Bucket Supreme. That one showed how restaurants try to market themselves with gimmicky catchphrases, while this one lampoons businesses who use gorgeous scenery to attract customers. And in a weird roundabout kind of way, it actually mirrors what Spongekiss was doing. Both episodes are extremely similar, as a matter of fact, to the point where they're right next to each other on my ranking. So yeah, 8 out of 10, number 16 on my ranking. The cave setting is neat. I like caves. I've played the second level of almost every Mario game ever. I know how this works. Speaking of video games, Krabs and Plankton having a digging battle during the climax must have definitely scratched that corner of people's brains that revolves around Dig Dug. I'd assume it's an intentional Dig Dug reference anyways. I don't know. I don't really have much to say about this one that I haven't already said in Spongekiss or Chum Bucket Supreme or what have you. Chum Caverns is an enjoyable episode with a cool atmosphere, a slightly different take on a plankton story, and whatever the heck these things are. Also, the SpongeBob wiki has been extremely bipolar when it comes to giving me useful info on episodes. Some episodes will have some intriguing stuff, while others will have trivia like this. This is the only episode in which the French narrator cries.
15 minutes later.
Good for him, I suppose? What, are you gonna tell me every time that guy blows his nose? Huh? SpongeBob? Wiki? This gives me nothing of substance to discuss. Speaking of having no substance... Arg. And as if the universe decided to target specifically me today, the Season 6 finale, The Clash of Triton, is just about every major problem people have with Season 6 rolled up into one of the worst, most egregiously boring specials in the entire show. My feelings about King Neptune have not changed since his last major appearance all the way back in the first season. He was a fucking prick back in Neptune's Spatula, and he's still a fucking prick here too. So much so that the entire conflict of the story is caused by him. You'd think that for Triton to be secluded and locked away for centuries, that he would have had to commit some sort of horrific atrocity to deserve such a punishment, right? No. That would require actual storytelling skills. Instead, Neptune just locks Triton away because he didn't want to hurt and kill people like Neptune did. If anything, he wanted to help people. Are you now beginning to understand why I think this character is a detestable piece of shit? And then he spends the whole special bitching and blubbering about how much he misses his son, and it's like, dude, if you miss him so much, then just go get him. You were the one who imprisoned him, surely you can unimprison him. Just go fucking get him, you dunce. And because a lot of this special is just characters moping and whining, it results in this episode feeling way too melodramatic. It feels like a soap opera disguised as a SpongeBob episode, and that is not a compliment. How about that title, by the way? The Clash of Triton. Nickelodeon was really in their clickbait era here, weren't they? The only clash that happens is Triton trapping a few characters in a cage and firing a singular laser beam at Bikini Bottom. There's no true feeling of rising or falling action here, and this makes for a very mind-numbing endurance test of an experience. Did you know that the original title for this special was Neptune's Party? That at least would have been more fitting. I don't want to talk about this one anymore. Season 6 has its fair share of boring nothing burger episodes, but this one takes the cake as the most mind-rotting of all of them. There is absolutely nothing here to latch onto. Characters here are either unlikable or useless. There's barely any jokes. The pacing here moves at the speed of molasses. It's got gross out in all the wrong places. It's awful. Not to mention the animation errors. 1 out of 10, number 47, and last place for this season. That's the latest you're ever going to see that animation. At least the card has buy more cards! At least Overbooked wastes less of my time. At least Truth or Square has a couple unironically fun moments. The Clash of Triton is the second worst special in the entire show, and an ominous sign for what to expect in Season 7. God help me. If you are hearing this, then congratulations! You have reached the end of yet another SpongeBob SquarePants retrospective. I just finished another work week, and college classes start for me again, another semester in a few days, so figured I might as well knock this out while I can, but, you know, as always, thank you guys so much for watching and supporting these. It really means a lot. It really does, especially for me, who isn't even doing this for profit. I'm just doing it as a hobby, so it really does mean a lot, more than you guys know. But Season 6, funnily enough, actually has a few episodes that, when I was a kid, when I still listened and cared about what people thought on the internet, back when I thought, oh my god, SpongeBob is bad because Cartoon Dick Sucker 42069 said so. There were some episodes in Season 6 that I really could not stand as a kid. Ironically enough, one of them being Pineapple Fever. I remember thinking, oh no, Squidward's suffering, and oh no, SpongeBob and Patrick are so annoying, this episode sucks, but, of course now it's one of my favorite episodes of the entire show, so, funny. Of course, as always, I want to thank everyone who helped make this video possible. My editors, Lamp Dude, and my two new editors, Clue, who's been a close personal friend of mine for a while now, and Winter, who filled in for Matt in this video, since Matt was not available for this one. She really saved our asses, and this video probably would not have been possible without her, so thank you, Winter. And don't worry, Matt, as of right now, Matt has said that he will most likely return for the Season 7 video, so, if at all possible, the Season 7 video will have 5 editors instead of 4. Of course, I want to thank Sean again for doing those, rating animations. I still plan on using those for every single video. I want to thank Sid, otherwise known as Cartoony Sid, for doing the animation for the No Nose Nose segment. You know, actually, as of recording this, he hasn't finished the animation yet, but he should finish it by the time the video goes up, obviously. So, thank you, Sid. I don't know if I can get him on for every single video from now on in this retrospective, but I'm very much damn well going to try. Thanks to Roy for making the thumbnail art, as always. God, it's so good. I'm so happy that people seem to love these thumbnails just as much as I do. And of course, big thanks actually, to the Gladding Gladiator for being willing to guest star in this video. I had a lot of fun working with you. I have a lot of fun watching your videos. Really appreciate your help on everything. Thanks, man. As for guest stars for future videos, I'm not exactly sure. I don't know, maybe for the Season 7 video I can get, like, Phantom Strider or something. I don't know. Or maybe Nintendo? Fucking... I don't know, man. We'll see. It really is just a process of reaching out to the person and seeing if they respond and or if they're interested. Season 6 doesn't have much else I really want to talk about. I feel as though, in my personal opinion at least, that these videos are getting better and better. And I do have friends who are early creative consultants for these videos that, you know, I send the scripts to and they're like, okay, yeah, this is pretty good. Maybe change this, this, and this, but this is pretty good. So I do have, I guess you would call them, like, script coordinators, kinda. And, you know, I'd hope that these videos keep improving and getting slightly better and slightly better as they go on, you know. I wouldn't want them to get worse. But I feel as though I did a good job, you know, talking about Season 6, why I like it so much. Aaron Springer, you're still the GOAT. Next is Season 7, which, as of recording this, I have already rewatched, and the video is in very early planning stages. The plan is to get the Season 7 video out before year's end, so hopefully I will be able to self-discipline myself enough to where we can get it out on time. So once again, thank you all for watching, and look forward to SpongeBob's worst season next time. Stay tuned.